Altra Timp 5. It started in a hate relationship and ended up in a love relationship. This is my full review of the Altra Timp 5 after running over 600 kilometers in the shoe. The usual disclaimer, I bought the shoe directly from Altra and I am under no obligation to say anything positive or negative to satisfy the supplier. Again, I bought it with my own money, therefore my opinion is completely subjective. I'm going to start with the specification. The Altra Timp 5 has a midsole made out of Ultra Ego Max. The stack height is 29mm across the board for 0mm drop. The outsole is a Vibram Mega Grip with 3.5mm lugs. The foot shape is a standard foot shape and the foam stiffness or hardness is that of 24.5. The width at the toe box next to the big finger is 90.1mm. The upper is a mesh, the tongue is gusseted, the weight in my size 44.5 is 340 grams and the retail price is that of €160. I'm gonna start with the things that I liked about the Altra Timp 5. The upper is the first thing that I'm gonna mention. Again, in the beginning I felt that it was very stiff, very rigid. However, over time I started enjoying it more. It is very comfortable and especially very protective. For me it feels like a chain armor. It's a pretty harsh upper. When I run in our trails, which are pretty rough, rocky, with sharp edges, etc., I feel that this upper is highly protective. Up to now, it seems durable. I'm talking about the upper, not the overlays. The midsole, in the beginning, I felt that it's going to be like another like a Thorns 7, which it was one of my worst shoes that I ever wore. However, over time it got better, and even though it's a little bit firm, I really enjoyed the ride, especially when running on the trails. It is responsive, not overly aggressive. However, it is, I feel, it's an overall good rounder. You can go easy, you can go slightly faster, and if you want to do some speed repeats on the trails, it will suffice as well. Again, since the midsole is on the firm side, it's easier to increase the pace without losing a lot of energy, and it is protective as well because it will not compress much when you're stepping on very sharp rocks. You can easily change direction when running 10 sharp corners because the stack height is not massive, and again the midsole is not overly cushioned and overly soft. The width at the toe is a plus. It's one of the widest shoes, especially at the big toe. When you compare this one to the Trabuco Max 3, which is already very wide, this is approximately 6mm wider compared to the Trabuco Max 3, which makes it in a class on its own compared to other traditional shoes. The outsole is grippy in most conditions. As we said, it's a Vibram Mega Grip. The lugs are not overly aggressive. They are 3.5mm lugs, and even though I did not have the opportunity to run in muddy terrain, it did very well in almost all conditions I ran in, mostly gravel, soil and clay. However, all of the conditions unfortunately were dry, so I could not test it on wet surfaces to see how it performs, apart from some maybe dew in the morning. However, nothing overly wet. So far the outsole seems durable. There is some wear and tear, especially in the midfoot and around the edge at the heel. However, there is still some depth in the lugs. They are 3.5mm, they are not very deep. However, after 600 kilometers, there are still lugs visible. Mont Blanc carbon at around 100 kilometers some of the lugs are already completely worn out, so it seems that the Mega Grip is a harder compound compared to the light base. Things that I disliked, there are not much to be honest, because I really love this shoe, especially after running the first 200 kilometers in it. Durability seems to still be an issue with Altra, even though the outsole on this one, it stayed intact and it stayed attached. However, the overlays, especially where the shoe bends, they started coming off. If you see here, they started coming off after the first couple of kilometers. In fact, as well, its upper is tearing apart even on the edge where the shoe flexes. I think the issue is that the upper material is pretty rigid, so I think, at least I assume, that it's very difficult to glue the overlays to the upper, especially in the areas where it flexes. The midsoles, at least for me, it flattened at around 500 kilometers. Again, I'm a pretty heavy runner, over 80 kilos, and I am not a light runner, so I stomp more than run. So that might wear out the midsole even quicker. However, now reaching 600, I use it only for a couple of short 10Ks. Today I used it this morning actually for some speed repeats. It could still do the job, but it is not as lively as it used to be a couple of kilometers back. The lugs, even though they have very good grip, unfortunately I think they are not aggressive enough to grip on loose terrain, and that might be an issue if you're running downhill on slopes with moving gravel under your feet. They do not dig in deep enough to get a strong, stable foothold on that kind of terrain. So if you're running in them, I think in a lot of gravel and stuff, they might not be the most ideal shoes. I think you know the conclusion, at least overall, I'm very satisfied with this shoe. If I had to buy another one, I would gladly do so. I like its versatility, I like its protectiveness, I like the midsole, even though it's nothing to write about. However, it's a very good all-rounder midsole. So if I had to give it a rating, I would definitely give it 8 out of 10. Maybe it will lose some points for durability and the lugs not being aggressive enough. However, I would highly recommend it to anyone who wants to buy a 0mm trail shoes, which is not overly aggressive, and it can do even road to trail. That was it for today. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you have any questions, feel free to write them in the comments below. I would gladly answer them as soon as possible. See you in the next one.